Okay, hi everyone. Most of you know me, my name is Stuart Smith. What we're going to do today is I'm going to show you how I polish my knives from a 180 grit all the way down to a hand finished 600. So what we're going to do today is we're going to use these Gator belts. Now I buy my Gator belts from the Herbst Academy in Pretoria. Basically it's a really kind of funky Trizac grit, and we're going here from approximately a 180 all the way down to about a 600. And then from the 600 we're going to go to the workbench over there and we're going to hand polish up to a hand 600 as well. The idea of this test is to do it in approximately 15 minutes. So we're going to do this all in one take. I'm assuming most of you know how to grind. I'm not going to do any grinding demonstrations. We're just going to work as fast as I can. Not too fast, we don't want to rush anything. You should never rush any of your work. And yes, I know most of you don't recognize me without my beard, but it's growing back, I promise. Alright, so we're going to get started. I'm going to start grinding here. We're going to work our way slowly through 180, 240, 400, 600. The reason I use such close spaces between my grits is I find that I do less grinding per grit than if I was to go straight from a 180 to a 400. We have to sit there for a little while going over and over trying to get the grit to remove the previous grit marks. Alright, so off we go. First thing I'm going to do is I do my ricasso, then I do the flats on the blade. Alright, so off we go. Using a strong magnet, tip down, I start at a slight angle to remove the previous 180 grit marks. Okay, those are gone. Other side. Okay, those are gone. Alright, then our bevels. Remember, with finer grits, the blade heats up faster. One side. The first one always takes the longest, but once you're done, the rest follow much quicker. So I'm just checking in the lights, the angle, angling the bevel to make sure I've removed all the previous grit marks. You notice sometimes I turn it like this. By creating multiple surface marks, I can actually tell where the previous grit marks are hiding. In this case, it seems we got them all. Okay, now with the Gators, you have to be careful not to grind profiles on them. It'll strip the belt very quickly. But when you're grinding the back, if you do it at a slight angle, you won't wreck the belt. Now, I know I said you shouldn't profile, but I'm just doing it very softly here to clean up. I'm not pushing very hard at all. Now, most of this can be done by hand, but the idea of today's exercise is to do it quickly. And I'm not rushing per se, I'm working with efficiency. Alright, so now we're moving to a 240. Now, this 240 is a little bit used, so it doesn't work as fast as it should. But it still works effectively. The great thing about the Gators is it'll work up until these little tire tread marks are all gone. So off we go. Remember, the first thing we do, we grind ricasso. Now my previous grit we did a slight angle, now I'm going to do it straight. Okay, one side done. Other side done. Pull it down. Our bevels. Now it's worth noting that this little plunge line here, your run-ins, this is the most difficult part and the most crucial part for you to grind. Because when you have to hand polish this little corner here and you haven't done proper grinding there, it's going to take you the longest time to polish this area up. So I'm paying particular attention to make sure I get all my grinds in there with the reducing grits, so that when it comes to hand polishing it's not so hard. If you burn your fingers, you can quench your fingers too. The reason I'm doing this without gloves is because this blade has been heat treated already. I need to feel the temperature of the steel so that I don't burn the steel and remove any of the hardness. Okay, that side's done. Just track the belt across a little. You see me changing the angle again, kind of grinding in an arc. It's just double checking, because I can see here some little grits that are being a bit stubborn, some little marks. At all the times I'm keeping the bevel flat. Now you can't really do this with hollow grinding. With hollow grinding you have to keep perpendicular to the wheel. With flat grinding gives you a little bit more freedom. Let me just check, okay, and now I'm making sure I get into my lines here. Great thing about the Gator belt, when you work the edges round very slightly, which allows you to get in here without actually ruining your the crispness of your line. And it keeps this running slightly with a slight radius. Okay, I think one more. Sorted. Then we do the back. If I did it just straight like that, it tends to leave a groove inside the belt, which we don't want. This is why we did an angle like this. Very softly, like that. Okay, next. Okay, so this is a 400 or an A45. Now this one's nice and fresh. It's got nice strong grit on it. It's not very worn. I've only used it for a month or so. Whoops, don't forget. Okay, again, the slight angle this time. One. Two. Now it's going even quicker. Always checking for scratch marks. What I can do if I really want to do an obvious check, I tilt the knife at an angle about 40 degrees and give it a once over. I can see very clearly if there are any deep scratch marks, which they're not. So, next side. Always make sure that you're keeping your blade flat on the surface and then only applying pressure to either the edge or the back of the knife. I struggle mostly with deep scratch marks on the back. So what I do when I do this is I'm always putting my pressure on the back first. And I can see that I've got everything. But I'm just going to do it again to be sure. And then once an angle. Maybe one more. Okay, excellent. Now this final stage, the 600 grit, is not necessary, but I find if you want to speed up your polishing by hand, if you do the 600 grit, you don't even use a whole strip of sandpaper to polish one side of the blade. So we can do the 600 anyway. And then what happens also when you use the 600 is you don't do your ricassos. You won't do your ricasso now. I'm going to grind the blade first, then polish it by hand. Then I'm going to come back to the machine and then grind my ricassos on, and that will keep this line here crisp and clean. Alright, so let's get grinding. Polishing. Now this is a much finer grit, so I have to keep quenching the blade to keep it cool. Looks like I've got everything, but I'm going to go over this particular area a little bit more enthusiastically because I really don't want to have to come back to the grinder. So it looks like I've got everything. Let's do the other side. Yeah, it looks good. I'll give it once more. Okay. Then we just do the back quickly again. Very softly. We don't want to strip the belt. Nice, there you go. Okay, now I'm saving the ricasso for after my hand polishing. We're going to go hand polish now. Now in my vise I've got a little groove here. So when I stick my blade in, clamp it like that holds it in place. Some more conventional makers will clamp a block of wood in there and clamp the blade to the block of wood. But I find this perfectly acceptable for what I want to do. So I've got some 400 grit sandpaper. I'm going to cut one strip off. Put it aside. I've got some soapy water over here. Have a look here. Some soapy water. I've dipped the sandpaper in the water now. Come on the other side to see it. And I've got my polishing block. Now this is just a piece of wood with some leather glue to it, ground with a taper so that the leather sticks out. Now this helps me get into these little corners. Put a little bit of water, soapy water, onto the blade and off we go. Now I'll give it a once over, all over, to see if there are any deep scratches. Doesn't have to be particularly effective. We're not actually polishing the blade, we want to see where all the deep marks are. tissue paper and we give it a wipe, and I can see the marks are pretty much evenly spaced. Doesn't look like there's anything particular deep. So I can now start polishing in earnest, and I've only used this little bit of sandpaper here now. So we put a little bit of more water on it, and off we go. Now I work it in sections. In small blade I do it in 3 sections, 1, 2, 3, and then I go over the whole thing. So in the corner, using this little sharp bit. Also take the hard, I'm pushing quite hard, and I use that little run in there to stop the block from moving over onto the ricasso. If you can hear from the sound in there, you should be able to hear again, click, 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 click as it taps in there. Stop, move the sandpaper up. Don't waste more than about 30 strokes on a single spot, maybe even less. Because the more you keep your sandpaper fresh, the quicker you're going to work. Okay, so I've done that bit, now let's move up to the center section. A little bit more water. It should be noted that it's bloody hot in this workshop. So I'm sacrificing my comfort so that all of you guys can learn how to do this quite quickly. Poor me.
Don't worry, that's not soapy water, it's actually a glass of whiskey.
Yeah, yeah, this is going to be a luxury knife. Yes, we're just using whiskey to get it done. A lot of guys use paraffin. Some guys use plain water. Novices generally do it dry and they can't figure out why it takes so long. But this is not necessarily the best way to do it, nor the only way to do it. This is the way I do it. Go over the whole blade now. Okay, now give it a quick check. I can see it's pretty much all done except for a little bit here. So I'm going to go over that again.
$17 minutes. Sir.
Okay. Spent too much time talking. Okay. That's that done. Then without removing it from the clamp, I cut a piece of 600. And off we go again. Now I have skipped one step here. Normally I'll take that 400 and do it at a slight angle so I can see the previous grits. But because of the method I'm using, this is actually very effective. Okay, now I see it's starting to get dry. Now I'm letting it dry, because now I want to see what the final grit looks like. Okay, once you're there, you take it sideways and you stroke it like that. Okay, because I spent so much time talking, we're running out of our 20-minute slot, so I'm going to take this blade and we're going to do the ricasso quickly. And then all you have to do is times that by 2, and that's how long it takes.
Okay, 1 minute left. 1 minute left.
Alright. Now, just take a cloth, put it in the light. There we go. You can see it's got nice crisp lines, even though it's only a 600 grit finish. Just another 5 minutes. You could push it up to a 1200 grit finish if you wanted to. There are a few little dirt marks there. But there you go. That's the essence of it.